Hey guys, we're going to mute ourselves for a little bit and get this thing going. We're going to wait about 5 more minutes and we will start rolling. So you can watch Paul and I do what we do on a regular day of sitting in the office and doing nothing. There you go. That's basically what Paul does 24/7.
So are you muted now or no?
You are muted now. Okay, I can hear you now.
All right.
And so can
Wait,
they.
on the air. Wait a second, but now it's going live, so everybody can hear me.
Exactly.
Wait, you said just mute us.
Contrary to popular belief, I do not have vodka in my water bottle right now, as someone just said. All right,
Yeah,
guys.
Mo's not a drinker. I've only seen Mo drunk one time. It was pretty hilarious.
Welcome to the book club. Chapters 5, 6, and 7. And we should have thrown in chapter 8 as we found out that it was 2 pages.
It's 2 pages.
So it's gonna be a good one. So let's just get into it. And even if you guys haven't read the book, stick with us. Really, this has really become a mentality talk, as we've been talking about, Paul. I mean, it is real. This book is really incredible, and it's broken down so simply. I just can't get over how simple it is.
Yeah, so I was just telling Mo that, I have a good friend of mine who we kind of view money a little bit differently, but I want this person to read this book because I think it does a great job of, like right here, this chapter, Getting Wealthy versus Staying Wealthy, chapter 5. Good investing is not necessarily about making good decisions, but consistently not screwing up. I mean, just to get right into it. Second line, there's only one way to stay wealthy, some combination of frugality and paranoia. Now, you don't want to live in a world of fear, right? You still want to enjoy life and say, hey, can I afford this? My brother said something to me the other day about some expense. He goes, Paul, we can't really afford to spend this money. I'm like, no, we 100% can afford. He's like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, now whether we do it or not is totally different, but we can 100% afford to do this within all of our cash flow, not dipping anything. So, we grew up with a little bit more paranoia about money than most people. I don't dislike that because he and I still live very good lives, but I on a lot less money than most people who, I have a lot of friends who've said to me, Paul, if I had your money, I'd be spending blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, it just doesn't do it for me on some areas. But, it's the paranoia to a certain level of what happens if I screw up and we go broke. Is that real? I don't know. So
it's funny how in a lot of ways, the more money you get, the less you want to spend it on big items. Like I spoke to some high school kid yesterday and he was like, my goal in life is to buy $150,000 Dodge Viper. And I was like, yeah, I probably had those goals in life too when I was 16 and 17 and 18. But now I get there and I was like, the thought of spending $150,000 on a car these days is like, that's a really hard decision to make because even though I can afford it, like no one's business.
And I have a Tesla in order and it's $108,000. And I'm like, do I really want to spend $108,000 on a car when I have a perfectly great car already? When I was 18, I remember thinking to myself, if I have X dollars, I'll have 2 houses and 10 cars. I have triple that number currently, and I have 1 house. I don't include the Mexico houses because they generate income in their business, and I have 2 cars. So I look at that going, I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I'm not just like trying to accumulate. Now, one thing I never thought I'd have, I have a watch obsession. But the great thing about the watches is, if you find rare enough watches, like my watches have gone up in value. It's not a justification for them, but you can sell a watch for like I just wanted to sell a watch the other day. I had somebody look it up. I paid $5,200 for the watch, and they told me they thought they can get us $5,000 for the watch. And I'm like, so I owned the watch for 3 or 4 years, and it cost me $200. Okay, you know what I mean? So these are the things, but I also think a lot about a watch. It might be $5,000. So in this story, on page 58, 59, this guy Jesse Livermore, he went and bet the market was going to crash, made tons of money. But then it says after his 1929 blowout, overflowing with confidence, he made larger and larger bets. He wound up over his head in increasing amounts of debt and eventually lost everything in the stock market. As Bill Gates said in one of the past chapters, success can be one of the worst teachers of lessons or one of the worst things that can happen to you because you get this overconfidence of, I'm going to do very, very well in everything I do. And we all get that way at some level. It's called complacency. And the complacency is when things start to get a little scary, I think. And the other guy, Germansky, lost everything in the crash, but then Livermore lost everything later. So they both end up in the same position. Getting money is one thing. Keeping it is another. Good Lord, that's the best statement in the world. Like people don't realize how important that statement is. Getting money is one thing. I always joke with people. I say, if you had my money, you'd be broke or dead. And most of the time they like laugh about it. They're like, yeah, you're probably right. I'm like, no, getting money and keeping it are 100% different things. My goal in life is that whoever I decide to leave some money to, I teach them how to be a good steward of the money. Like, how do you live a responsible life with it? That's the important part. And how do you invest it properly? That's the important part. So he says after the break on page 59, if I had to summarize money success in a single word, it would be survival. 40% of companies successful enough to become publicly traded lost effectively all of their value over time. I mean, guys, think about that. 40% that were so successful that became publicly traded company eventually went to zero.
And that's why we talk about all these companies nowadays that, I mean, they're exciting. Yeah, they look really exciting. But the problem is just look at history. Look at history and what has happened with these very, very successful companies that were really something at the time. Imagine what these little startups are doing. That's why we just are so against them sometimes before they become into the maturity phase. And even then, 40% of them are going to fail.
40% go to zero. That's not including the acquisitions or the mergers. It's just going to zero. Capitalism is hard, but part of the reason this happens is because getting money and keeping money are two different skills. This is why I'm always perplexed when people say, oh, that person's very wealthy. They sold a business. I'm going to go listen to them when it comes to investing. No, they sold a business. They made a business and they sold it. They didn't invest the money. I know plenty of entrepreneurs who are terrible investors. In fact, I don't know an entrepreneur I know who is actually a good investor, come to think of it. Besides me. And even me, I've looked terrible in the last 4 or 5 years. Next page. Getting money requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But keeping money requires the opposite of taking risk. It requires humility and fear that what you've made can be taken away from you just as fast. It requires frugality and an acceptance that at least some of what you've made is attributable to luck. So past success can't be relied upon to repeat indefinitely. I look at that for myself. I was lucky by being born in the right family in the Middle East that came over here, did very well, and I was able to take something and grow it. That's where my luck really started and really blossomed, right? And of course, there's been other luck along the way, but for me, this really speaks to me because listen, I want to make sure that I enjoy life while also growing at the same time in a way that makes sense to me. And we talk about this all the time, Mo, about how we don't need to be making big risks because, as Warren Buffett says, why risk what you don't need? Why risk what you have for what you don't need? There's no reason to.
Yeah, there's truly no reason to. It's going to go against you every time. Not every time. The majority of the time you try it. So why bother doing it? Why not do it slow and steady? Slow and steady really does win the race. That damn turtle and rabbit thing. It's so true.
And that's the funny part. Our returns are going to be better over long periods of time just by being slow and steady and being cautious and conservative. That's it. All right. The ability to stick around for a long time without wiping out or being forced to give up is what makes the biggest difference. This should be the cornerstone of your strategy, whether it's in investing or your career or business you own. Yeah. We have no debt on any of our operating businesses, non-real estate related, because we sit there and say, listen, we want to make sure that if there's a bad time, we're not worrying about a bank coming to us and saying, because we saw it happen in 08, 09, banks coming to people and saying, we don't want your loan. That's why I hate banks, because they say they're there for you and they're not. We don't like your loan anymore. It's called. And that would cause people to go bankrupt even though they're making their payments. Page 61, compounding only works if you can give an asset years and years to grow. It's like planting oak trees. A year of growth will never show much progress. 10 years can make a meaningful difference, and 50 years can create something absolutely extraordinary.
That was such a good analogy. That's a great analogy. I'm going to keep using that one.
Yeah. We can spend years trying to figure out how Buffett achieved his investment returns, how he found the best companies, the cheapest stocks, the best managers. That's hard. Less hard, but equally important, is pointing out what he didn't do. He didn't get carried away with debt. He didn't panic and sell during the 14 recessions he's lived through. He didn't sully his business and reputation. He didn't attach himself to one strategy, one worldview, or one passing trend. He didn't rely on other people's money. He didn't burn himself out and quit or retire. He survived. Survival gave him longevity. The example that he and Munger give, pardon me. Hey, bro, I'm in the book club. I just came in to say hi. He talks about this guy, Rick, that Munger and Buffett were friends with. And Buffett said, Munger and I always knew we were going to be rich. Rick knew it too, but he wanted it faster. And because of that, he went and took margin. And when the market crashed in the early 70s, he had to sell Buffett his shares for under $40 a share. Guys, Berkshire Hathaway is currently $420,000 a share. And this guy sold to Buffett for $40 a share, under $40 a share. This to me is the biggest example of trying to get rich quick. And it's hard. And I know a lot of people would say, well, Paul, you and more are wealthy. Of course you can say that. You're right. But the other thing I want you to see is that we're wealthy and we're not taking the big risks in order to get even more money. Because we know we'll be fabulously wealthy because we already are wealthy. Why do we need to? I always say, like, I look at the numbers on the retirement calculator and I'm going to have tens of billions of dollars in 50, 60 years. Is my life going to be any different if I have 20 billion versus 40 billion versus 10 billion? Whether I have $1 billion tomorrow versus 10, 20 years from now? No, it's not going to be any different. So why care about it? Why take risks I don't need to take? I'm going on to the bottom of page 62. More than I want big returns, I want to be financially unbreakable. And if I'm unbreakable, I actually think I'll get the biggest returns because I'll be able to stick around long enough for compounding to work wonders. Bam. Love it.
It's true.
No one wants to hold cash during a bull market. They want to own assets that go up a lot. I know someone who holds cash during a bull market.
Yeah, here we go. This is it. This is exactly what we kind of talked about on the live stream yesterday with Seth.
And we're 100% criticized by a lot of people, by friends. Paul, it's about time in the market, not timing the market. Okay, and I agree with that if you're trying to save for retirement. I'm not trying to save for retirement. I'm trying to make investments that make sense to me because I don't need to make 25 extra percent with the risk of losing 50. I'm okay with just sitting there saying, listen, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to hold back. Point number 2 on 63. Planning is important, but the most important part of every plan is to plan on the plan, not going according to plan.
I love the way they said.
But it's true. Like, the plan doesn't go according to plan, right?
More often than not, especially if you don't have a good strategy, your plan is not going to go according to plan. So, and even harder than that, sticking to your plan.
Yeah, especially when everything else says you're wrong, like we have been in the last 5 years.
I mean, if you look in the current times, I mean, everything says we're wrong on Alibaba, but sticking to the plan.
Stick to the plan. Why did I lose my book club? There we go. All right. The bottom. A plan is only useful if it can survive reality. In a future filled with unknowns is everyone's reality. A good plan doesn't pretend this weren't true. It embraces it and emphasizes room for error. Margin of safety. How many times do I say we don't know the future? We don't know the future, and it's really hard the further out you go to plan for the future. That's why I don't buy the Palantirs and these other crazy stocks. I look at it going, it's not justifiable today, and for it to work out, a lot of good things have to happen to it. Is that possible? Absolutely. Is it probable? No. And that's where I sit there and say, I'm fine being wrong and missing the few Palantirs in the world. But a plan is only useful if it can survive reality. Everyone's reality is the unknown. I am not doing today what I thought I was going to be doing 3 or 4 years ago. Everything Money wasn't even a blip on the radar 2 years ago. Guys, I'm going to tell you a story. 2 years ago, I went to a medium, and she said to me, 2020 is going to be a big year. You're a great communicator. You're going to be the face of your company. And I was like, what the is she talking about? I never knew this. That was November of 19. I had no clue.
I'm going to tell you now, we're in Mexico in January of 2021. Never did I think that we would be doing this.
Yeah, we had 8,700 subscribers, and we didn't think we'd be doing, you know what I mean? Unbelievable. Next page 64. Room for error, often called margin of safety, is one of the most underappreciated forces in finance. It comes in many forms: a frugal budget, flexible thinking, and a loose timeline. Anything that lets you live happily with a range of outcomes. It's different from being conservative. Conservative is avoiding a certain level of risk. Margin of safety is raising the odds of success at a given level of risk by increases your chances of survival. Its magic is that the higher your margin of safety, the smaller your edge needs to be to have a favorable outcome. Margin of safety, guys. This applies to so many things in life. Walrus, this is not an RM. It's a Hublot, but I appreciate it. Everybody thinks it's an RM. It's really not. Optimism is usually defined as a belief. I was talking about this the other day with somebody because this one always confused me because I like to be very optimistic. Optimism is usually defined as a belief that things will go well, but that's incomplete. Sensible optimism is a belief that the odds are in your favor and over time things will balance out to a good outcome, even if what happens in between is filled with misery. There's no way that my business is going to be perfect for the next 30, 40 years, but I'm optimistic about my businesses because I believe that whatever happens, we will overcome or we will try to overcome. and we will have more favorable outcomes than not. It's very hard, Lee, to find margin of safety in this market. We feel like we found it with 7, 8, 9, 10 companies, but it's very difficult. The idea that something, bottom of 64, the idea that something can gain over the long run while being a basket case in the short run is not intuitive, but it's how a lot of things work in life. Think about that, guys. It's crazy in the short run and works out in the long run. That's the stock market. That's what it is in general, right? I do believe that 40 years from now, the stock market's gonna be a lot higher than it is today. But along the way, we're gonna have a lot of gyrations. Okay. Look at page 65, 1850 real capita GDP to today. Look at that growth. But look at the next page, page 66. Look at the list of all the things that have happened in that time period. I'm starting to use the exact list in my explanation. 1.3 million Americans died while fighting 9 major wars. 99.9% of all companies went out of business. 4 U.S. presidents were assassinated. Blah, blah, blah. But 33 recessions lasted 48 years. All these things, guys, happened, and everybody's lives still got better. Our standard of living increased 20-fold after inflation in these 170 years, but barely a day went by that lacked tangible reasons for pessimism. Every day is pessimistic. You can be pessimistic every single day. Every single day there's a reason. And I keep bringing this up because of this book. Every single day there's a reason to be negative. It's about keeping that long-term outlook going. All right, guys. Chapter 6, Tails You Win. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. I'm going to page 72. All right. Hold on a second. Page 72. It's not intuitive that an investor can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. It means we underestimate how normal it is for a lot of things to fail, which causes us to overreact when they do. So I'm trying to do this momentum trading, turtle trading. If you read the Turtle Trader book, The Complete Turtle Trader, it talks about how 65% of their positions don't make money. They lose money. The point is, the 1/3 that make money make a killing. Now, I do question this chapter a little bit because it talks about, I do believe that Warren Buffett had a lot of singles and doubles. And yeah, he had a lot of big, and they even say, like, if it wasn't for a couple of our big investments, I think he means that more in the fact of doing insurance business because they were able to use float.
Yeah, I think Munger said that later in this chapter.
Yeah. Yep. And they're talking about Walt Disney. He lost money hand over fist. It took one movie that made everything for Walt Disney. Now, I think for our businesses, I think it's been more across the board. And maybe that means I'm not taking big enough risk. That could very well be the case. In the middle of page 73, out of more than 21,000 venture financings from 2004 to 2014, 65% lost money, 2.5% of the investments made 10 to 20x, 1% made the more than 20x return, 0.5% earned 50 times or more. That's where the majority of the industry's returns came from. Now, that is VC, and VC is all about going for the big numbers. So it's kind of like turtle trading to me. They're going to lose on 65% of their bets, but the 35% that work out are going to make the majority of the money. It's going to make all the money. And I'm fine with that. Remember, tails drive everything. I do question that a little bit. I do think there's a possibility of being a good investor, and you'll have a couple of big ones, but like I look at our real estate investments and they're all very good investments. Like our worst real estate investment actually has very little debt and makes 20% a year. And I'm looking at going, that seems pretty good to me. You know what I mean? Page 74, 40% of all Russell 3000 stock companies lost at least 70% of their value and never recovered over this period of time since 1980. Effectively, all the index's overall returns came from 7% of component companies that outperformed by at least 2 standard deviations. Okay. Any questions or comments so far?
I've been answering a lot of the comments. Mendy said, I can see how true this concept is in my own business and the products I release. A small percentage make a killing, and I can't always predict that ahead of time. Susie said, it's so true. Always a reason for whatever you train yourself. You know, it's funny. I look at this and say, the people that are in this market. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just muting it because we're reverberating against each other. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't hear the reverberation.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Mark Anthony said, heads I win, tails I don't lose much. That's from Manesh Pabrai.
That's Manesh Pabrai, yeah.
Yeah, he's very big on heads I win, tails I don't lose much. And that's where I look at the same thing on real estate bets. We make our real estate bets based on, all right, if I'm wrong, I make 5 to 10%. If I'm right, I make 20 to 30%. That's a pretty good estimation of me over long periods of time.
You know what's funny about this? You read back and you look at all of this in the history of the market, and we have people saying stocks only go up and they can't go down. And it's just like, look at history. This is all cyclical. It's going to happen. Maybe it's just going to be a little bit different timing this time around, but it's going to get in the same situation.
Yeah. Page 76. Napoleon's definition of a military genius was the man who can do the average thing when all those around him are going crazy. It's the same as investing. Most financial advice is about today, what you should do right now, and what stocks look like good buys today. But most of the time, today is not that important. Now, I do disagree. I think it's about buying what stocks look good today, but for the long run. And guys, we've always said investing isn't about the numbers. Good investing is about the strength to do what you're supposed to do when times are tough, to be calm when times are tough, right? Tiger Woods is so good because his focus is amazing during the crucial times, right? He flourishes during the crucial times.
It really goes same as investing. Tiger's so good because he's able to control his emotions. Why was Derek Jeter so good in November and October, November? He can control his emotions, and that's why he's, in my opinion, the greatest shortstop there is of all time, all around. It's investing. Why is Buffett and Munger so good at its emotions?
Munir says there's no way to predict tails, in my opinion. I agree with you, Munir. However, if you have a process and you apply it to lots of things, the tails will come out. You will naturally have the tails that you didn't expect. My best real estate deal is not the one I thought was going to be the best real estate deal. It just turned out to be that way. I thought it was going to be a good real estate deal. I didn't think it was going to be the best. My house in Mexico, I thought were going to be a good deal. I didn't think it was going to do as well as it did. I put myself in the position where I sat there and said, if I'm wrong, I'm still going to do well here. So it allowed the tail events to occur. Snave, I just look at them as totally different. Long-term versus short-term trading. I'm easily able to go, they're separate things. I don't know why. I'm just able to say, the Ameritrade today, I opened 3 accounts yesterday, and I'm funding them with short-term trading accounts. And I don't look at them as it's amazing to me. Like, I look at value investing, totally separate compartment to me than day trading. I have separate accounts for them. Why? Because that's just the way I function with it. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And if you want to do it, do what Paul just did, and it's what I've been doing for a long time. Separate trading, make it totally separate accounts. That's what's going to work. If that's what you need to do it that way.
Yeah, to me, you have to do it that way because if all of a sudden you're buying a value play here, and then you have to also buy that same stock as a momentum play or a trading play, that can get too confusing. I like having separate funds where I handle them differently.
Yeah, for example, like Apple, I trade, and I've been invested in it since 2015. I'm buying my Apple shares on a chart in a totally separate account than my value position.
Yep. End of page 77. Your success as an investor will be determined by how you respond to punctuated moments of terror, not the years spent on cruise control. A good definition of an investing genius is the man or woman who can do the average thing when all those around them are going crazy. Tails drive everything. Guys, when stocks are falling and you're buying more, that's what's going to drive your returns because everybody else is going to be bailing. You should see when people bail and they get back, they bail when it's the wrong time to bail and they get back in when it's too late, when the big returns have started happening because they want to feel comfortable. That's why their returns end up being average. But over 40-year periods of time, it ends up being, it looks like they did well because they made 6 or 7 times their money when they should have made 45 or 50 times their money. But 6 or 7 times your money sounds like a lot of money when it really isn't.
Paul, here's a question. Doan asked it. What do you mean when saying Buffett didn't attach himself to one strategy back in chapter 5?
Well, that's what the book said. Like he started with the cigar butt strategy of I'm going to go find companies that have one last puff in them. Then he switched to Philip Fisher more of like, let me find a good company that's growing. Through Charlie Munger taught him this. Let's go find great companies that we can buy at fair prices that are good about investing so we can own them for the long run and drive that compound returns. And that's what I'm trying to get myself into a little bit too.
Here, Mendy just said that's what happened to me in 2020 drop. And also, Tim told me this story. His father goes down to somewhere in Florida. There was a physician there who had been vacationing there for multiple years with at the same resort, and he sold out in March of 2020 at the very bottom. And he was like, I'm not coming back here because I just sold all my position and I don't have enough money to afford this again. And that is what you're never going to time the market. And especially in your retirement, do not do that.
Yeah. Page 78. If you're a good stock picker, you'll be right up maybe half the time. If you're a good business leader, maybe half of your product and strategy ideas will work. I think that's too high, by the way. If you're a good investor, most years will just be okay and plenty will be bad. A good investor does okay, but when the market's bad, they do better. If you're a good worker, you'll find the right company in the right field after several attempts and trials. And that's if you're good. Peter Lynch is one of the best investors of our time. And he said, if you're terrific in this business, you're right 6 times out of 10. If you're terrific in this business. Something I've learned from both investors and entrepreneurs is that no one makes good decisions all the time. The most impressive people are packed full of horrendous ideas that are often acted upon. Read Jeff Bezos and Reed Hastings talk about this all the time. And I like that Jeff Bezos says, listen, if you didn't like the Fire phone, just wait. We have way worse things coming. I love that. It's great. Next page. Middle of the page. In most fields, we only see the finished product, not the losses incurred that led to the tail success product. It's the same thing as you only see the success later. You didn't see the grind along the way. We only see the overnight success. But this is an old saying, overnight success took 10 years because you don't see the grind along the way. It's very, very difficult. But I assure you guys, trust me, if you do the right things year in and year out, you're going to wake up 10 years from now going, wow. You're going to wait 20 years from now going, holy cow. And you're going to be up 30 years from now really wealthy.
One of my favorite pictures that I see, it's on Instagram. It's everywhere. It's basically an iceberg, and you see the tip of the iceberg sticking out of the water, and that's the overnight celebrity, but you don't see the miles or feet below that were all of the hard work to get there to build to the top.
Look at this channel. You guys only saw the channel in success. You didn't see the 2 years prior that I was dumping $100,000 a year into this channel and it was going nowhere because it was a podcast and we were getting 500 listens a week and 300 of them were our friends. Like you guys didn't see that grind of it. And when we have 1 million subscribers, people are going to see when we had 1,000 and people are going, why do you only have 1,000? And this was a channel that I didn't realize was going to be this successful. I thought it was going to be successful, but I didn't think it was going to be this successful. This is a tail-driven, someday I'm going to look at it and go, I'm hoping that when we have 5 million subscribers and the revenue is huge and the profit's huge, I go, this was our tail-driven event. I invested $200,000-$300,000 in this channel. I remember my father asking me, he's like, how much did you invest in the channel? I said $250. He goes, oh my God. He's like, if I had known that, I would have told you you're crazy. I'd be like, well, I believed in it.
That's why you're a doctor and not a business person.
Well, yeah, maybe that is a big part of it, Mo, but it's just, I've also have other, Dynasty Owner is going well, but we're worried about a legal thing right now where states might just sit there and because of legal laws, it might make it hard. We invested a lot of money in that business. I've invested a ton. That might go to zero. That very likely could go to zero. Now, could I try to sell it to some company because it's a good product? Yeah, probably. But the whole point is there are going to be these things. All right. Next page 80. At Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting in 2013, Warren Buffett said he's owned 400 to 500 stocks during his life and made most of his money on 10 of them. Charlie Munger followed up, if you remove just a few of Berkshire's top investments, its long-term track record is pretty average. It's not whether you're right or wrong that's important, George Soros once said, but how much money you make when you're right and how much you lose when you're wrong. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. There are 100 billion planets in our galaxy and only one, as far as we know, with intelligent life. The fact that you're reading this book is a result of the longest tail you can imagine. That's a great way to end the chapter. Not only that, the sperm. How many millions of sperm were shot into your, you know what I mean? It's like, this is the biggest tail event of all time.
That's awesome. All right.
Chapter 7, freedom. Controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. This is a good one, guys.
Very true. This is my favorite chapter out of all of them.
Yeah. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. Happiness is a complicated subject because everyone's different. But if there's a common denominator in happiness, a universal fuel of joy, It's that people want to control their lives. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want is priceless. It's the highest dividend money pays. Guys, this is a major transformation in me in the last 20 years. To me, money was about accumulation of things. Now, I still like nice stuff, don't get me wrong. But the fact that I can now maybe get into a relationship and say, let's take a trip every month, a long weekend, a Friday and Monday, and then 2 really nice trips a year. That's the freedom of being able to spend that time. Let me go to work. Let me show up to work at 10 o'clock and leave at 4:30, knowing full well that I'm gonna get everything done in the morning that I need before 10. And in the evening, if I have free time, I can do that. That's what I look at it as. Like, I don't look at it as okay, if I go do this, I can now afford this. No, it's more of like, okay, let me go do what I enjoy doing. That's what's so great about EM. What's so great about EM, everything money, is I get to do it the way I want to do it and see how the revenue grows from there.
Julian said,
okay,
ultimate goal for him has always been freedom. It was funny. When I was like 21, I was like, what do I want? The thing that I wanted most was just to be able to say no to pretty much anything and just do it my way at some point. Luckily, I've accomplished that.
Funny. It's funny, Mo. I didn't think that at 21.
Didn't. So I did think that at 20. I remember I was in school and I was like, I really want to just be able to say no to literally anything that was my goal. I just wanted to have my own freedom. And I don't know why I thought that way. So at 21, but I did. Well, I do know why. I'll tell you not here, but I'll tell you.
All right, so page 84. Having a strong sense of controlling one's life is a more dependable predictor of positive feelings of well-being than any of these objective conditions of life we have considered. Control over doing what you want, when you want, with the people you want is the broadest lifestyle variable that makes people happy. Money's greatest intrinsic value, and this cannot be overstated, is its ability to give you control over your time. A small amount of wealth means the ability to take a few days off work when you're sick without breaking the bank. Gaining that ability is huge if you don't have it. A bit more means waiting for a good job, etc. There's a lot more in there. Page 86. The United States is the richest nation in the world, in the history of the world, but there is little evidence that its citizens are, on average, happier today than they were in the 1950s when wealth and income were much lower. A 2019 Gallup poll of 150,000 people in 140 countries found that about 45% of Americans said they felt a lot of worry the previous day. The global average was 39%. 55% of Americans said they felt a lot of stress the previous day. For the rest of the world, 35% said the same. So we're the wealthiest country in the world, where even the poor here are wealthier than a lot of the middle class in other parts of the world. And we saw the highest unhappiness. I always used to tell my friends, my job is to think. And it talks about Rockefeller's job was to think. I always said, I'm paid to think. That's what I'm paid to do. And I love it. I'm paid to, that's what we do with everything in money. I'm thinking, I'm sitting there giving my ideas, etc. That's what I love about it. Same with our businesses. My job is to look at numbers and look at the situation and say, here's what I think based on what I see. Can I be wrong? Absolutely, but this is what I see. Page 89. Compared to generations prior, control over your time has diminished. And since controlling your time is such a key happiness influencer, we shouldn't be surprised that people don't feel much happier, even though we are, on average, richer than ever. I just started doing something recently for someone. Whenever I'm hanging out with someone, I put my phone away and put on Do Not Disturb, and I don't care. And if they use the restroom or go somewhere, I check my phone quick, see if there's anything I missed, and I don't answer. I've loved it. I feel so much freer. I actually look forward to it now. It feels so much more freeing than it used to.
Yeah, it's such a great thing. I told you the other night when I went to dinner with Nicole, I left my phone in the car just because I just don't want to do that anymore. You guys don't realize how much you use your phone till it's gone. Then you're like,
I mean, look at me on this phone call. I've gotten how many texts and I've answered them, right?
Yeah. Like literally we went to dinner. We went a little bit early, sat there for 15 minutes. I probably pulled out my phone 4 or 5 times to check something, because that's just what you do and you don't realize how dependent you are on it until it's gone. So maybe it's something you guys want to do.
These are great comments in here, by the way.
Go ahead and read some.
I remember my first time of, wait a second, no. I used to want money. Now I want the flexibility and freedom. That's all money matters. And it's funny, I teach at my old high school and I'll say to them, would you rather be happy or have money? Well, having money is happy. Why? Well, you can go take trips and do the nice things. Even if you're miserable at work or in other parts of your life, you can at least go experience things that make you happy. And I'm like, or buy things that make you happy. I'm just like, but they're kids, right? They're kids. That's the way I thought when I was a kid. Money equals happiness. But that's one of the things I want to change with my nieces as they're younger, is to promote that money doesn't equal happiness thing. Money, there's a study, there's a lot of studies, I don't know if I mentioned this book, that after 75 grand, happiness doesn't really increase much. I have stresses. Mo and I have stresses because of money. Mo's had friends of his ask for money. I literally said to him, like, hey, pay for my wedding. Like, expectation level, you know what I mean? It brings about some unhappiness, but.
Yeah, like literally pay for my wedding. And if you don't pay for my wedding, you're a terrible person. Like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. So guys, that's the end of chapter 7. Before we go, I want to sit there and say, let's pick the next 2 weeks from now. Let's see, how far does chapter 11 go to? Let's go through chapter 11, page 119. Right? So 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Perfect. Paul, here's a question for both of us. What simple things bring you joy and happiness?
Taking walks, chess, my dogs, I do like traveling. I do like the idea of taking trips, but I like reading I don't watch TV much anymore. I just like going to bed and reading. I like something simple. I remember years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, you know when I felt the most success? Walking into a tennis club and being able to play tennis on a Tuesday night and not worry about work or if I should be doing something else. I remember walking in a tennis club going, oh my God, I'm going to spend $18 playing tennis and it's going to feel like I'm the most free person in the world.
Yeah.
Those are the things.
Mine's really, I don't know, hanging out with people that I want to hang out with when I want to. If it's in the middle of the day at 2 o'clock, I'm going to go do that if they can do it. That's pretty great. Playing guitar, I don't know, just really my favorite thing is that I can do it whenever I want to do it. That's my most freeing thing. There's really no specific activity. If it's a random activity, then I'll do it. And that's great. And I could take as many days off as I want to or go wherever I want and do work from there, etc. Let's see.
Do you make sure you do at least one a day? I do all of these things every day, except for tennis. I read, I play chess, I talk to friends. Mo and I are going to dinner tonight with a friend of ours. I'm so excited to just do dinner at Longhorn. A simple dinner. We're just going to sit there and shoot the shit while his girlfriend and the one buddy's wife hang out, and then we're going to meet up afterwards. I'm going to lunch tomorrow with a good friend of mine from Dallas. He's bringing his new girlfriend into town, and I'm going with a woman I very much care about. It's just, those are the things that I really, really enjoy. Seth, you're here.
Oh, Seth, we finally made it. Here, is it wrong to say that money is the vehicle to happiness? I do think that it's a question to unfold, I guess, because money does not buy you happiness. It makes things easier, I would say. But I know very wealthy people that are miserable people.
Most wealthy people I know are miserable. Listen, I have said money can make you happier, but it's about what you were as a person. Money will magnify that. So if you're unhappy, you're going to be unhappier. If you're mean, you're going to be meaner. If you're a dick, if you're a liar, you're going to be a bigger liar. So it's about getting those fundamental processes in place on what you're doing, and money will magnify that. If you're generous, you'll be even more generous. If you're loving, you'll be even more loving.
I know a guy.
Yeah, as Bacon says, money makes more of what you are, so it magnifies.
Yeah. I know a guy. He's the CEO of a large Fortune 500 company. Paul, we talked about him when we went to dinner with Nick the other night, but he probably makes $30 to $50 million a year, depending on the year. And he literally said, I was like, do you enjoy doing this? He said, I fucking hate what I'm doing. But he makes so much money and he's miserable because the grind is miserable.
Well, the funny thing is, to me, I would have no problem saying I'm done with the $30 million a year. I'd rather be happy. I have like $200 million in the bank. I don't need more. Like, the funny part is most people will be like, it's funny. I was watching Succession the other night and they tried to get somebody to come join the company. And they were like, how much is it going to take? He's like, it's not going to happen. I remember thinking to myself, like, 5 years ago, I thought, come on, there's a number. Now I'm like, no, there's no number. It's not going to happen. I don't want to do it. If you said to me right now, go start a hedge fund, we literally had a friend of ours say that to us, like, go start a hedge fund, guys. You'll make a killing. No, why? We don't care to.
We both looked at each other and said, yeah, we're not doing that.
We literally were both like, no. Mendy, I'm not officially off the market, but I am. Mo knows a lot of a situation right now that's unfolding. I'm not going to say I'm officially off the market, but I'm taking myself off the market right now. It's not official, but I'm taking myself off the market. I deleted my dating apps about a month ago, and I'm focused on one person.
Boom. Any other questions, guys? Let's see. Money. Yeah, money is a magnifier. It looks like that's a common thing. Say hi to my mom tonight, Paul. Oh, that's great. Congrats on getting Kathy Wood.
Definitely Kathy Wood, Jacob.
All right, guys.
I'm gonna make her tweak my last name.
Well, this was great. So we're gonna do this in 2 weeks from today. That'll be well, I don't know the date off the top of my head, but it's gonna be chapters 8, 9, 10, and 11, and we'll go from there, and we'll do it all over again.
By the way, just a comment to these people. Nothing's set in stone yet, guys. There's a lot of work that has to happen, but things are looking good with this person, and we'll see. But trust me, the second it's official,
the world will know.
It'll be on Instagram. It'll be everywhere because whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, guys. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you over the weekend on Discord.
See you guys.
See ya.